one. It's simply called the stars. Now that my Uncle Ram is dead and gone, I can write about him without any fear that he will read it. Not that Uncle would have gone out of his way to read an account of himself, even if I had written it during his lifetime. He was a literary ascetic, in that he abstained from literature. In fact, Uncle read nothing except books on astrology. Nothing else interested him. And I don't think he was even aware that other things besides astrology existed in this or any other world. The world of astrology was good enough for him. Had Uncle chosen a different world, say the world of astronomy, and explored it with the same unshakable faith and fanatical zeal he had given to his astrology, everyone might have honored this worthy son of India. I did mention this to Uncle once. We were trudging across the yellow rice fields one starry night. He looked up at that twinkling world of his.
Oh, look, my boy, up there are our rulers. Every atom of life in this world dances and sings like puppets as they pull the strings. And the starry rulers enact this puppet show according to definite rules. My work is to find out those rules.
But astronomers say that astrology is not a science. And astronomers are clever people. They are well paid and honored everywhere. Now, if you took up astronomy...
Astronomers? Ha! All they can do is look at the stars through their silly telescopes. I don't have to sit and stare at the stars like an amazed child. I study them in my plans and my charts, and I find out what they're going to do to our lives. Scientific? Ha! If anything is scientific, it's astrology, because it foretells the future with precision. And he spat at the rice fields as if those contemptible astronomers were hidden there amongst the rice.
Uncle Ram could not talk of anything else but this science of stars. There was no event or activity of life without the stars having a hand in it.
When the farmers of the village talked on rice and rain, he would wait impatiently by until they finished. Then,
whether they liked it or not.
Then, oh yes, then he would give the whole problem an astrological interpretation and end up with a warning.
When one of the farmers wished to get married, or had been blessed with a child, he found it necessary to consult Uncle,
who in turn consulted the stars. He would take out his astrological almanac and peer gravely at it over his glasses. Then for days, he would add, multiply, and subtract.
Poor Uncle was not quick at figures.
Once he had arrived at his results, he would visit his client immediately. Oh, the 6th of July, oh, that's a very auspicious day for the bride, but not for the bridegroom. The 10th of August is, however, a very lucky day for your marriage.
If it were a child's horoscope, it meant even more intricate calculations. But Uncle loved every bit of it.
It meant that he was planning the life of a human being up to the very moment of his death.
Uncle Ram, however, called it
predictions,
and said that he was only jotting down what the stars told him. Unlike other astrologers, Uncle wrote down bluntly the predictions of the stars.
If the child were to end up as a criminal, he did not seek to cover up this bit of bad tidings in any way.
Uncle predicted woes and happiness, great enthusiasm. He is reputed to have prophesied the First World War and minor catastrophes besides.
Excuse me, it says many minor catastrophes. Can I just get this right? Many minor catastrophes besides.
Whenever his predictions came true, Uncle would talk of them for weeks and months on end.
Have you heard of Animal's son? Oh, he was kicked into a well by a bull and is seriously injured. Well, I warned him of it and had told him that within a few months he would suffer a serious accident from fire, stone, or water. It's all written in the stars. Poor boy.
There were many of Uncle's predictions which never came true, and he did not like to be reminded of them. Whenever he was questioned about these unfulfilled prophecies, he would say rather impatiently,
I must have made a mistake in my calculations. You know how bad I am at figures. It's my figures and not the stars that have been wrong. In fact, I have worked the whole thing all over again. And I have now found out that the stars do say that the thing has happened as it should have happened if it was going to happen when it happened. The stars can never be wrong if your calculations are correct. If the stars are wrong, then how did I prophesy the First World War? Or what happened to Animal's son? I have been right many times, and you all know it.
Auntie Ram did not play the part of a sympathetic wife.
Who should, with plenty of kind words and constant encouragement, help this great scholar in his search for truth.
Often at night, when she found her husband busy calculating, she reviled him abominably. You good-for-nothing husband of mine! If only you could spend your time calculating money instead of the stars! We should not be living in this dirty hut and be so poor!
But my dear, we are destined to be what we are. And however much we may try, we cannot defeat the will of the stars.
The logic was answered by a spate of violent abuse and threats. But Uncle did not give up the world of stars.
There was a fat, grimy scroll which Uncle consulted frequently.
It was his own horoscope. It had been written by an astrologer, now dead.
It seems that Uncle's horoscope was fairly accurate. In one remarkable passage, it was written that he had a partiality towards the stars.
But some of the malicious elements in our village propounded a theory that Uncle became an astrologer after reading it in his horoscope.
Uncle read his horoscope often, and even made alterations and additions to it in the course of his readings. He was chagrined to find so many discrepancies that came to light with the passage of years.
Anyhow, this book of predictions influenced Uncle's life and activities very much. Sometimes he refused to venture out of the house for days because his horoscope forbade such foolhardiness.
Oh, many a time he had been saved from horrible dangers, thanks to the timely warning of the stars.
Auntie, however, interpreted Uncle's frequent confinement in the house as nothing more than an excuse to keep away from work in the fields.
According to Uncle's horoscope, he was to die at the age of 68. He had even gone so far as to calculate the time and day of his death. He repeated the grim prediction to everyone, as if the fulfillment of it would once and for all be an irrefutable proof in favor of astrology.
There was something dramatic in the idea that Uncle had to die to establish the truth of his science. Any other person in possession of such a grim fact as the precise time of his own death would have found life a misery of fearful expectancy. Not so with Uncle.
His attitude towards the whole affair was that of a fearless and impersonal scientist. He knew he could not escape what the stars had planned for him, and however much he might struggle, the stars would win in the end. Above all was the knowledge that his own death would have established the truth of his one and only love, astrology.
A few weeks before his prophesied day of death, Uncle Ram went about taking farewell to friends and relatives. At first, the village looked upon it as a joke, but Uncle went about it so earnestly that they began to take an interest in his approaching death.
Uncle purchased a fine brown shroud. He sent out invitations to be present at his death. After that, there was to be a grand feast, for his death was not to be an occasion for grief, but for rejoicing. The great day arrived. Between 2 and 5 in the afternoon, Uncle Ram was to meet Yaman, the god of death.
He wished to die in the open rice field, so that everybody could witness the logic of the stars. The shroud was resting on a mound of fragrant flowers. He had even brightened up a small drab field with gay paper banners and festoons.
In fact, the whole scene was more suggestive of a wedding than of a death.
There were 2 priests to chant appropriate prayers and hymns while Uncle died.
The day was hot and the sky clear. The stars were invisible, but they were there looking down all the same. He smiled and joked with those around him, as if he were waiting to catch a holiday train. Hundreds of people had assembled to see what promised to be a strange phenomenon. Even the skeptical ones had come with their peculiar smiles. But, thought some of them, what if he should really die? What then should their attitude towards astrology be?
The perspiring, excited crowd waited for Uncle.
At 1:30, Uncle came direct from the town. He was dressed in white and was in no way downcast. Some admired Uncle for his calmness and courage. Some were even moved to tears. All the more so because many had treated him rather unfairly.
Auntie, too, was there by his side. At first she scolded him for being a fool and called him the usual names. Gradually, because of Uncle's earnestness, she believed that Uncle was really going to die. Now, in the face of his impending death, she began to weep loudly. She reproached herself for having treated him so inconsiderately all these years and begged for forgiveness.
A few minutes before 2, Uncle wrapped himself in his shroud and cheerfully lay down to die.
Auntie and many others howled with grief and begged him not to die. Others were afraid. Some did not know what to think.
Uncle closed his eyes and waited for death to take him away. The priests chanted their prayers and hymns. All waited for the miracle.
And kept looking at their watches. The chanting and weeping were kept up for more than 3 hours. Now and then, the priests stopped their chanting to examine Uncle. At such moments, everyone held his breath.
The priests shook their tired heads to indicate that Uncle was still alive.
Past 5.
And Uncle still breathed heavily.
Many of the crowd had gone away, some angry, some laughing at their sight out. The skeptical ones smiled with increasing sarcasm. The priests kept on with their chanting for another hour, thinking that there might have been a slight error in the calculation.
Uncle, too, was convinced he might have overlooked a vital fraction in his calculation.
However, the chanting and the weeping slowly changed to angry murmurs. They insisted Uncle should get out of the shroud before it got too dark.
Uncle got up at last,
It seemed almost like resurrection.
muttering about wrong calculations.
When the people hurled insults and abuse at him and his staff, Uncle was unperturbed. Auntie howled, not with grief, but with rage. The angry guests were a little placated after Auntie had given them the dinner as promised.
As for Uncle, he went straight to his room to find out why his calculations had gone wrong. Before the night was over, he found out that he had actually 5 more years to live. He announced this heartening news to his guests, who received it sullenly.
Yes, yes, we know. But for the stars, you might have died.
Uncle, Uncle still went around proclaiming that at the end of 5 years, he would die.
Whenever someone made fun of him by reminding him about this tarry blunder, he defended the stars and blamed his weakness at figures.
In fact, Uncle Ram embraced astrology with greater fervor than ever in the face of so much ridicule and vicious skepticism. Then, one day, 2 years after the great fiasco, the stars struck him another cruel blow. He was in the midst of his calculations when
he died. Auntie found him with his head resting on his horoscope. The heartless stars, to which Uncle had given a lifetime of unselfish service and devotion, had struck too soon. I can imagine Uncle protesting.
No, not too soon. Oh, the stars, they're never wrong. It's I who am wrong. I'm so bad at figures. There's some undetected flaw, a small fraction overlooked in my calculation. No, the stars are never wrong.